Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. This is Scott Ferguson, and I'm super blessed to have a New Yorker that is over in Italy right now, and he's in a really no-name town, if you will. But there's like Robert Pompeo and Madonna. Actually, the lineage of them is come from their town over there, which I'm going to have them say the name here in just a minute. But my good friend Robert Pardi from Possibility in Action, he's a rock star coach. When we're done, or if you check the show notes, go to his website. His story that we're going to get into of tragedy and then triumph is just absolutely off the charts. And Robert, he's a 3-time author, as well as a well-known, compelling international keynote speaker, a transformational coach, and an adjunct professor who completely changed his life after a significant life event. I'm going to put up his Amazon author page in our show notes as well. So we'll do a book giveaway at the end if you stay on to listen. And Robert, thank you so much for coming on. Please introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast varsity squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Orange, buddy. Orange.
Orange is a fun color, man.
Oh, it's an excellent color.
I love it. I love it. So what's the name of that city? Because you said it's not really even on the map. So
yeah, well, it's not on social media maps really. So it's a village called Pacentro, and it's a medieval village. My house is around 500 and something years old. I have a 1,000-year-old castle in my backyard.
Dude.
There's 900 people. They still make their own pasta, wine, cheese, everything by hand.
Do you have a WhatsApp?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to have you send me some pictures of that, man, afterwards.
Sure.
Because that's my kind of jam. I'm a history loser. You know what I'm saying? Anything is history I dig into. That's just amazing. So you have quite a story, but let's maybe get before the events of your late wife.
Sure.
But let's maybe kind of like where you were when you were younger. And squad, if you're watching on Vimeo or YouTube, if Robert goes like this, he's real. There you go. It means perfect. He's not telling me to shut up or hurry up or anything like that. He's telling me it's perfect. So, Robert, let's get into a little bit of the origins, if you don't mind, my friend.
Sure. The origins are so important to the whole transformation because, as crazy as this is going to sound, I was blessed to have an abusive alcoholic father. So, I'm a New York City kid and Italian-American family. My dad, unfortunately, had an issue with alcohol and with violence, but that taught me a lot of skills. I mean, I can look back on it now, but, I learned about uncertainty. I learned about resilience, grit. I learned about my voice. I stood up for myself finally when I was around the age of 13. That was the last time he ever raised a hand to me. And that was because he was a bully, right? So I learned about my own personal power, and all of that then led me to pursue what in a kid's mind, or at least my mind, would be my saving grace, which was money. Freedom was money. I'm a kid of, Gordon Gekko and the movie Wall Street and all of that. So of course, you chase money, right?
Yeah.
And so I just started at the age of 13. I started working before school, after school, crazy. But back then you could find a job in a grocery store.
How old are you, Robert, if you don't mind me asking you that?
I am 56.
Okay, so we're right around. I'm 50, so we're right there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, that taught me a lot, but it was fueled by anger. And anger can be a motivator, but it's not sustainable. And then I meet this amazing young woman, 17 years old. I'm 19 in college. And she's like, I want to date you. And I'm like, no, I don't want to date anybody, because after what I saw in my family, I'm like, no, I just want to be alone. I want to make money. I don't want anyone in my life. And within a month, I told my mother I met the woman that I was going to marry. I mean, she just bowled me over. She was amazing, amazing. And she taught me about love. She taught me about opening up. She taught me about so many different things. And then at the peak of our everything, she was enrolled in an MD PhD. I had just gotten an investment banking job at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority in the United Arab Emirates. I mean, it was just dream package, dream everything.
Yeah.
She's diagnosed with late stage breast cancer right before her 31st birthday. And to tell you the truth, those life skills as a kid came right to surface. resilience, grit. Let's get through it. Let's manage this. And her story is very unusual, which is why it was on the front page of the New York Times when she passed away, because she was doing the MD, PhD. She said, Robert, I know enough of medicine to be dangerous to myself, so I want you to speak to the doctors. I just want to show up for my treatment and go home. I want to be a patient.
That's true.
And so I was the middle person during that phase. And then when her cancer, it just never went away in her liver, and it just started to get worse. I eventually wound up leaving my job because I thought, you know what? I don't need to care for her. She was self-sufficient. But because I was getting this information of, well, now it's in her bones, now it's in her lung, I was thinking to myself, okay, time-wise, I got to pay attention to this. And also, I want this woman to achieve her dreams. And her dream was to take her diagnosis, her journey, and use it to become like this amazing doctor. And her big goal was, she said, you know what? I want to get into palliative care. And I don't know if you know enough about palliative care, but okay. So palliative care is very misunderstood because people think palliative care is hospice. Right. Hospice is a part of palliative care at the end of the journey. Palliative care is a medical discipline to focus on quality of life, managing symptoms during the arc of a disease. Okay. So she said, I want to do this. And I said, I'm right behind you, whatever you need. And she wound up becoming the founding director of palliative care at New York Hospital with metastatic breast cancer. And she built the program, then she passed away. So that's, I started the childhood in a very difficult, confused, uncertain dynamic, which is what cancer really is. Mm-hmm. So those skills I put to use. And one of the things my wife and I learned, which is the first book I wrote, was to live in joy. That cancer was not the definition of her life, her identity, my life, my identity, our life. Cancer was an accent color. It was contrast to present joy. And we lived this amazing life. She journeyed with cancer for 11 years. And I specifically use the word journey because for her, it was a journey. It wasn't a battle. It was part of life. She didn't want to go through the negativity of being in a battle. That was her choice, and I support that. Wow. So after she passed away, I was still investment banking, had a tremendous amount of debt because an 11-year journey with cancer is not cheap. And not because of the medical system, but more, back then she was diagnosed in the late 90s. It was hard to find supplements, organic food, acupuncture, whatever you can think, right? And so I went back to Dubai because that was the job I had left. And I was there and I'm like, you know what? This is not right anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't belong here, but I was so lost. And what I realized is I'm a big acronym guy as well. Like I love acronyms. My whole life is an acronym or my whole life is a metaphor of something. I don't know. Right. So I realized that for me, loss represented the lack of self. I lost my identity and security. The world didn't seem safe anymore. And so I was like, who am I? And I realized that I had to unpack all the expectations of what I thought my life was supposed to be.
Sure.
And you start looking at that. I was supposed to have this beautiful blonde wife, maybe hopefully living in a penthouse in New York, me making money, her being a great doctor and doing all this stuff. And, that wasn't meant to be. And so as I started unpacking my expectations, I realized two really important skills. And I learned them as a child, and I learned them from my grandmother, who was my father's mother. And she was the one that guided me. Use your father as an example of what not to be. You don't want to be like him. She was so great. And there were two skills. One was daydreaming. So as a child, I had to daydream what would be possible. That's where
Sure.
possibility in action comes from. What would be possible?
Right.
And so there was the daydreaming, and then there was curiosity of, you know what, just be open. Like the more curious we are, the more opportunities.
It's the biggest power in the world.
It's
I
amazing.
coach that to my clients.
Yeah.
Curiosity.
I mean, for me, those two things, I looked at them and I said, okay, if I'm daydreaming, I have to start with small steps. Sure. Because I can't fill a big hole of loss tomorrow.
Right.
You know, I got to start putting little nuggets in there. And I finally got to the point where, as I joke, but I say all the time, you know, grief and the psalm that says, as I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, nowhere does it say in that psalm, sit down, light a campfire and roast marshmallows. It says walk through, right? Move.
That's right.
And action. There you go. So I'm like, okay, I got to the point where I asked myself, what would be the craziest dream I could live? What is the story I want to look back on my deathbed? And it was to attempt, and I use the word attempt specifically because I think try today is a word that we use when we know, you know, there's all these excuses why we can't do it.
Yeah,
attempt
Yoda said it best.
It's a little more empowering.
Try not.
Yeah.
Right. Got it.
Right. Try not. Right. So I would attempt to live in Italy, attempt to make a life work. And I asked myself, like, really, what if I can pull it off? I didn't ask myself about failure. I through the journey with my wife and understanding impermanence and precious time and all these other things, they're such great liberators. And I was blessed we were married for almost 20 years. Actually, her memorial service was on our 20th wedding anniversary, which was crazy. So she wanted a party anyway, so it was a different type of party, but she was celebrated. And I said, you know what? I have all of this, all these gifts. Let me just go live life. Yeah. And so has nothing to do with money, by the way. Anyone listening to this? Yeah, ex-investment banker. I was teaching English for $8 an hour.
Awesome.
There was no money. I had to recreate my life from scratch.
Sure.
I showed up in Italy, didn't speak Italian, didn't have a place to live, didn't have a job, and didn't know anyone.
Got it.
I just said, you know what? I want to be that explorer. I want to go out there and journey. And the word, we're not supposed to use the word anymore. We could use nomadic to a certain extent, but my grandmother always used to say, live like a gypsy, but in the good way.
Yeah.
Go out and just taste it all, right?
Yeah.
And so here I am in Italy, and I started realizing that one of the things I missed about myself, not necessarily my wife, I miss her still every day, but what I missed about myself was helping her achieve her dreams. And I'm like, oh, that's a life coach. And I went to life coaching school in Italian to force myself to learn Italian.
Yeah.
And that's how I wound up making a whole life here. What
a journey, man. That is, I think that you're built for coaching. You and I are brothers from different mothers, man. It's like, you know, I didn't lose a wife, but I lost a little brother to suicide. But my dad was Vietnam vet, alcoholic, bad, really bad. And me and him are best friends. Now he doesn't mind me talking about it, but that's I can resonate so much with this. So when we moved into the coaching business, I mean, you got accredited, you learned it, you lived it for freaking 20 years or 10 years, you know, helping your wife achieve her dreams. So when do you work one-on-one or with groups mostly?
So that's a great question, because my model has really evolved. And it's one of the things it's that whole curiosity thing, right? For me, I like everything to sort of be fluid. So I started one-on-one, and I still do one-on-one. Then I sort of moved into group coaching, and group coaching was based more on themes. Like I'm a big essentialist. So I had a group coaching course on living an essential life. Resilience for me comes from my childhood and everything else. I have a belief that resilience comes from we are all resilient. We wouldn't be here if we weren't. But resilience exists at the intersection of three key domains: purpose, perspective, and personal power. Once you can control those and understand those, and control, I don't mean control as in control a machine, but you can control your being within them and the understanding of them, you can access your resilience without your back being against the wall.
Love that, dude. Oh,
and
yeah.
So that was another group coaching.
Love it.
It has now transitioned into possibility in action retreats in Italy.
Love it.
And so I'm hosting one in 3 weeks in Puglia. And so it's a little unusual because what we do is it's 7 days, and each day we'll visit a place, but the place represents almost a metaphor, or it's a symbol for the life lesson. So we go visit Matera, for example.
Yeah.
And Matera is where the Passion of the Christ was filmed.
Sure.
And it's all those cave homes. Yep. So we get to talk about Plato's analogy of the cave, which is the Matrix movie, by the way. The Matrix just stole that. And, also passion. What is passion? And all of that. So, or we'll go visit a castle where supposedly the Holy Grail was housed. Nice.
Okay.
And we talk about, what's your Holy Grail? Are you protecting it? Do you have boundaries?
Wow.
Those are all key to living your life. That's what I love about the coaching. It's what I love about what I watched my wife achieve, is writing our own story.
Love it.
That's what it's all about.
It is. It is, and 100%. So when you're working, say, whether it's a group or one-on-one, Robert, is there any protocol or secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing, that initial conversation, or maybe help them find their blind spot?
It really is individual. So the discovery calls that I really sit down and I talk to people. People usually reach out to me when they feel there's something else out there. Mm-hmm. And so I ask them, what is the something else that you think is out there?
So you're a major question asker then?
I'm a major
That's your protocol. Okay. Yeah. Love it. And you probably listen very intently with your neck. You really lean in and hear that. Yep. Right? Because I believe that, everybody knows what they want. They just don't know. They don't know the questions to ask to get to them.
Well,
right?
100%. The whole thing is, the better the questions, the better your growth, the better the response, the better all of that. And so I'm not a big believer in motivators, right? Because I can't really motivate you. I can stimulate you, and you're going to be a little high for a while, and then you're going to just go back down to a baseline. What I want to do is I want to empower someone to realize that they have it in them. They just have to break down those walls. And like part of that whole thing, the conversation we had about expectations.
Sure.
I say all the time, expectations are the blocks with which you build your prison. If left unchecked, they become the warden of the prison. You start living because of an expectation that might not even be valid. So that's where all the questioning comes in.
Love it.
If you think about life in general, right? It's like a sculptor. And I say this all the time because I love sculpting. Okay. And, Michelangelo's quote of David, he said, David was in the marble.
Right.
Our life is marble, but first you have to chip away all the excess.
Right. I love it. And that's done with my clients. I should have said it a different way. It's like, we all know what we want. We just don't know how to talk ourselves into it. We're always talking ourselves out of it. And that a lot of it comes with the expectations. I love that. So when you're maybe in a discovery period or whatnot, or this could be group or one-on-one, Robert, is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. Wow, that actually stopped me in my tracks there for a second. So something that I wish they would ask me and they don't. No, because I'd rather them ask themselves. Mm-hmm. So there are times though that I wish they would ask themselves questions like, what's blocking me? Like I have to prompt it.
You have to,
So in that discovery session, they're very open to listening to questions, but they don't want to yet go into the darkness, right? What's blocking me? What's really, I'm not a why guy. I
never use why ever. It's judgmental.
It's judgmental. It's an archaeological dig. We could stay there forever, digging a hole of why did these things happen? Okay, let's just go back. It was your mother, your father, or something like that. Let's get on and move towards action, right? The what's. What do you want? How do you want to be? Those questions. So, but a lot of times people, I have to prompt for blockages.
Yeah, love it. Yeah,
like they just don't want to go there at the beginning.
And it's an art. Like you brought up Michelangelo, you brought up other things as a coach. It is an art. And it's an art that I get off on, man. It's like, I love to see, because every person has their issue or problem. I'm saying that in quotes if you're not watching, inside them, but the solution resides there too. And just getting them to see that and them lighten up and them coming up with their own solution on their, they're going to take a lot more, like you say, action if they come up with it than if I consult them and tell them what to do. I love it. So, have you seen the movie Back to the Future?
Sure. If I can remember it is a different story, but okay.
Now, let's get in that DeLorean with Marty McFly. All right, let's go back to the double deuce, the 22-year-old Robert in love. And may I ask your wife's name, please?
Desiree.
So you had Desiree. They were together probably 3 years by then, because you met her when you were 19. But let's go back to the double deuce, to 22 years old. I don't want you to change. I'm sure you would change things, but I don't want you to change really anything, because your journey is pretty spectacular. Okay. But is there any knowledge nuggets that you might drop on him to maybe help him shorten a learning curve, or maybe blast through maybe just a little bit quicker? Sure.
So first, I wanted to circle back, because you know what? I'd never change anything in my past.
Okay. No problem. We'll leave it.
No. It's just because I'm happy with who I am, so I know I have to thank everything from the past, right? All of it. Mm-hmm. But what would I say to Robert at 22? I would tell him to go a little slower, to not try to figure everything out all the time. And that whole thing of figuring it out, I would tell him of the art of surrender.
Yeah.
Because I was not a surrender guy at 22 years old. I was trying to control everything where I could. I was very focused. I'd work every single little second and keep everything organized and perfect. So that's really, I would also teach Robert about understanding his best, because that's something that I know now is our best may be 10% today, might be 100% tomorrow. Our best is not always 100%. That's an expectation that we really can't live up to. And then we start to condemn ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been to say, you know what? If your intention is to give what you got, that's it.
Love it.
That's your best.
Love it. Love it. So how does Robert want his dash remembered? That little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date. How do you want
I love that dash. I want that dash to be multicolored. It's true. It better be blinking. So what I want my dash to be is that I lived my philosophy. And that's it. Possibility in action is me. It's how I approach life. And that's what I want people that when, they're at my funeral, he really lived it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You remind me of so many Stoics, because I've dug into, the Stoics. The one that two of them pop into my head with you, Seneca and Epictetus. Like you two, like I hang out with those two every day. You know what I'm saying? I dig in to both of those. I love Marcus Aurelius, but it's just to me, it's just too bad. Like Seneca just, hit you in the mouth. So this, because he was like us, he was a businessman, right?
Yeah,
he was just trying
exactly.
to share what's better, Yeah. I love it. I love it. So Robert, what is your definition of a life well lived?
It's 100% living in harmony with your uniqueness. And here's a thing that I came up with this word, but I'm sure somebody else has, and I call it self-uality. And the reason I use that word is because the idea of coming out is based for sexuality, but we all need to come out to our uniqueness.
Love that,
to
bro.
not feel wrong,
Beautiful.
to be who we are.
Love that.
That's a life well lived.
That's beautiful. That's so, so good. And squad, we are going to take my good friend Robert through our leveling up lightning round just as soon as we get back from thanking our sponsors and affiliates. Time to shine today, podcast varsity squad. We are back, and Robert, I think I just might make a trip over to Italy here in the next year or two and hang out with
Excellent.
you for a couple days or whatnot, and we can talk about each one of these questions for probably with you an hour each one. But today you have 5 seconds with no explanations, and they can all be answered that way. You ready to level up, brother?
Yep. Let's go.
Do this. Robert, what's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
The best what?
Leveling up advice you've ever received.
Take action.
Beautiful. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
320s. So I journal in the morning, I read in the morning, and I exercise in the morning, 20 minutes each.
Love it. If you see me walking down the street, Fergie looks like he's in his doldrums a little bit. Outside of the books you've authored, and quickly on this, what book might you hand me to level me up?
Touching the Void.
Beautiful. I know that book. Actually, a lot of people don't, but I do know that book. What's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Happy face.
Beautiful. Nicknames growing up?
Face. Sorry? Nickname? Robbie.
Got it. Chess, checkers, or Monopoly?
Chess.
Right. Go-to ice cream flavor?
Rocky Road.
Beautiful. You're the second interview today. No lie, bro. Awesome. This is Rocky Road. There's a sandwich named the Desiree Robbie Boy. Will build that sandwich for me.
Wow, that would be. All right, I'm going to throw the Italian at you, okay? So that's going to be prosciutto, and that's going to be stracciatella on nice crusty bread.
Dude, me and you are hanging out for sure, man. Favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time or money to?
Buddy, there's a bunch of them, all dealing with breast cancer. So
Beautiful.
Susan
Thank
G.
you.
Komen.
My mom passed from it. I get it. Thank you for doing that. Last question, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s? Hit me too, dude. Dude, big hair, don't care. Dude, you had the invention of every music. Dude, the songs today have hooks from, like, I was just listening to this Pitbull song. They had the hook from Aha's Take on Me. Remember that song?
Yeah. Everybody has
in there. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But, you had the invasion of U2, Men at Work, Duran Duran, but then you also had Beastie Boys, Run DMC, Big Hair, Don't Care, Glam Rock, Metal Rock. That's awesome. So we gotta push towards the finish line here, Robert. But how can we find you, my friend?
All right. The best place to go is my website, Pardi, PARDI.com.
It's funny because next week I'm going to see John Pardi in concert. I'm not really into country music, but my lady is, and I've actually seen him before, and he's a lot of fun. In South Florida, with the weather cooling down now, it's a beautiful outdoor concert. So let's talk about your book, the Possibility in Action. And squad, I'm going to give a free book giveaway on my dime to you, the first person that puts, let's say, self-uality into the any comment. I don't care if it's Pinterest, LinkedIn, wherever you see if you put in self-uality, I will have a book sent out to you, Possibility in Action. But can you get into a little bit? And again, we're a little bit against time, but
sure.
A little bit about the book, please.
Okay, really quick. So I come up with these crazy thoughts in my head all the time. So Possibility in Action is an explanation of how I came up with the philosophy and the pillars, such as impermanence. Then there are 52 short stories, which I call musings, about weird things like a toll booth. And the questions will be, are you on the right road? Should you be paying the toll that's in front of you? What are you paying the toll with? Should you get off the exit? That's an example of one musing. There's 52 of them. Yeah,
I love it. And so, like, they could read it in a year. I mean, they could probably
journal. It's a journaling prompt book,
I can't wait to pick it up, man. So I'm going to actually get the paperback cover. Then I usually am a Kindle guy, but I'm going to definitely get that. So, Robert, give me one last solid, because I just have pages and pages of notes, man. I'm blown away by this, and we're going to do it again next year as well. Cool. But leave us with one last knowledge nugget we can take with us, internalize, and take action.
All right. It's one of my favorites. We only live an extraordinary life when we value the ordinary moments.
Dude, that is strong.
That comes from the journey with my wife. I'll tell you right now.
That's awesome, man. And it's not awesome about Desiree, but it's awesome. You know, that you see this and you've taken that. In Squad, we have had an emotional, leveled up masterclass, free one, with my good friend Robert here, who, you know, he's blessed, like myself, to have had an alcoholic father that taught him skills, not just skills on how to get out of chokeholds or how to get out of his fist, but he also the resilience, the grit, and he's built the personal power. You know, anger fueled him, but he found out that anger is not sustainable. You know, then he met Desiree. She was 17, he was 19. Okay. She taught love and trust and opening up. When you have somebody in your life, you're freaking unstoppable. You know, Desiree unfortunately became sick. She's medically knowledged, and she didn't want to fight with the doctors. So she trusted the protocol, but Robert was there as what he called himself a middle person, to really kind of relay things back and just kept his before he was even a life coach, he was her life coach to help her achieve her dreams of the MD, PhD, and being selfless. You know, he realized that, you know, she lived in joy and cancer was not her identity, you know, and the accent color and the contrast of that is joy. And he threw an acronym out there for LOSS, LOSS, this lack of self and security. And that's a beautiful way of putting loss and being able to understand it a little bit better. You know, his grandma reminded him to daydream. You remember that while you're daydreaming, realize that it's inch by inch, it's a cinch. Not everything can get done at once. By the yard, it's hard. So inch by inch. And then what I call the most powerful anything on this earth is curiosity. You know, and that's what he is full of. You know, he doesn't want you to try stuff. He wants you to attempt that. While his wife was sick, he attempted to make sure that she was getting her education and living her dream while she was breathing air on this earth. And he reminds us that resilience exists in purpose and perspective and personal power. And I just messed that up because I was typing so fast you can go back and really listen to that. Okay. The expectations, he reminds us, are the blocks that build the prison. And if they are not checked, they become the warden and you become locked in there. If you're maybe younger or even if you're older, go slower. Don't try to figure everything out at once. And like my good friend Leah Woodford would say, get your asking gear if you get stuck. You know, he wants you to surrender and understand that your best can change. My dude is planting trees he's never going to sit in the shade of. And that's the kind of people I like to vibe with. You know, Roberts will be remembered as someone that lived his philosophy, and he lived in harmony with his own uniqueness, or what he calls self-duality. You know, and we only live a life, an extraordinary life, when we value the ordinary ones. And that one hit home, dude. That one like made freaking tears well up in my eyes, because that's where I get stuck sometimes. And I'm going for the big stuff. And I really should, again, listen to what I say to my clients, where inch by inch it's a cinch. By the yard, it's hard. Embrace every single part of your life. And that's what my good friend Robert does. He levels up his health, he levels up his wealth. He's hungry, yet he's humble. And he's earned his varsity letter here at Time to Shine today. Thank you so much, Robert, for coming on. Absolutely love your guts, brother.
Scott, this was amazing. Truly.
Awesome. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.